Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Soul Symphony. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Z. I hope the information you find here helps you if you are on your healing journey. If you're not on one, that's okay too. So just please pass it along to whoever might need it. So today I'll go over clinginess. Clinginess is the same term as neediness. Sometimes we hear the term clinginess, neediness, and actually it comes out a little bit as insulting when people say that. But unfortunately, it's a real thing. And it's a real thing that sometimes is a manifestation of childhood trauma. Specifically, it kind of shows us our attachment style. People who are more likely to suffer from clinginess or neediness, I would say, which is the term that is mostly used. Neediness, we'll hear often people say, oh, she's needy, he's needy, they're needy, right? So the people who are most likely to suffer or to, I would say, show signs of neediness are people who have anxious attachment style. An anxious attachment style is something that is an attachment style that we most likely develop during childhood and childhood trauma by just being neglected. It's a result of neglect, childhood abuse, and emotionally not having caregivers, parents, or whoever is just in general the caregiver, whoever is supposed to give us the emotional, fulfill the emotional needs of the child at the moment, and that individual is not actually providing that need. The emotional need is not fulfilling the emotional need, so the child grows up feeling not being fulfilled emotionally, and eventually the child learns to be their own fulfillment, their own emotional provider. They provide their own emotional needs to themselves. So they learn to not go to other people for their emotional needs, not to go to the other caregivers or adults or um, I would say parents in general, because they understood that during childhood, they understood that it doesn't matter what they do, they would not have their emotional needs being fulfilled. So they learn to be on their own. They learn to be by themselves at a certain level. And then eventually they also learn. So it's kind of for a minute they learn, okay, other people would not give me what I need. But then they eventually learn that if I behave in a certain way, or if I try to hold on too tight, if I make certain noises, if I misbehave, if I just throw a tantrum, I will get my needs fulfilled. So eventually, that's the sad part about it. That the child learns that if I don't, I only have to do something, unfortunately, that is out of the norm in order for me to receive my emotional needs, the emotional needs that should have been fulfilled without me doing anything. Just by me being a child, I should have gotten my emotional needs fulfilled, because that's part of being a caregiver. But that's part of being a caregiver in a normal state. That's what a caregiver is supposed to be doing. A caregiver is supposed to be giving a child or the child that they're taking care of not only physical needs, which is most of not just the basic needs, which is food, shelter, right? Presence is one of it, because presence technically is part of emotional needs. And when I say presence, I don't just need physical presence. Presence in the sense that this child knows, if I come from school, and I was upset during recess because me and another child got into an altercation, I can come home and bring up what happened. And mom will actually listen to me. Mom will give me her entire attention. She will not be on her phone. She will not be scrolling. She will not be there talking to other people or watching TV. And I'm just talking like I'm talking to the wall, right? That's the presence I mean. Not just physical presence, but presence in the sense that attentiveness, being attentive to the child's need, making sure that the child knows that parent will actually step up if if I need them to go to the school. Well, if there is a need to go to the school to address what happened, my parent will actually listen to my story. They will ask questions. They will try to know who the child is. They will try to know what else happened. So when they show up at the school, they don't look foolish, right? They know exactly what to say and how to actually approach the situation even before they show up at the school. So it's that kind of presence I'm talking about. It's not only physical presence. The presence in the sense that the child understands that if I have any kind of need, my parent or my caregiver will be there for me. And the biggest one, again, is also emotional need, because we can be present for our children physically and provide food, shelter, all the basic needs, clothing, and all the basic needs. But if the child feels like I cannot even talk to my mom about what happened to school today because I know she would not even listen to me, right? So that's not a good thing. Or the child understands that in order for me to get mom's attention, I have to actually take a pen, like, I don't know, something, a cup, or throw it on the wall, or I have to pick up something and just make a lot of noise in order for mom to actually get off her phone and come and talk to me. And the only time she will come and talk to me is to discipline me, right? And then I'll be able to catch her attention and let her know what happened at school. So that's not something really that, in that sense, that's not something that we should continue doing if that's what we do with our children, right? Because that's where certain traumas come from, and that specific trauma, when it comes to anxious attachment style, it comes from that. It comes from a child not being emotionally fulfilled, which in adulthood, unfortunately, it manifests as neediness, clinginess. That will be that adult in a relationship who will be on their phone texting 20 times a day to their partner, or calling 20 times a day, or being so anxious because their partner say I'll be back at 5 o'clock, but the partner is still not back at 6:30, right? And they'll be anxious and having panic attacks like, well, why they're not back yet, right? So that's something that we should be able to make sure that we prevent it. Because when we have children, the whole goal of being a caregiver is to guide our children. And is guidance encompasses a lot of things. It's not just being there, right? Just by the law say, because a child cannot stay on their own, a physical presence, you have to be physically present there with them, right? You cannot just leave them in the house by themselves, but that doesn't mean you have to neglect everything else. That doesn't mean we have to neglect everything else. And when I say everything else, it encompasses a lot of other things that we should also make sure that we provide to that child, so that it breaks that cycle, especially if it's a cyclical thing, something that we have learned from our parents. That's the way our parents have taught us or have raised us. So therefore we are doing the same thing. We are following the same thing. We are continuing the same cycle by bringing that same trauma in our children's lives, right? And our children, unfortunately, if the cycle is not broken, they will take the same exact trauma and continue it to the next generation. And that's how it becomes, unfortunately, a generational trauma, right? So we have to be able to understand that in order for us to break, we're not only addressing and making sure that our children are not traumatized, but we also break in generational cycles by doing that. Especially if it's something that we have actually learned through our parents, right? That a child will, you're being fed, you have a roof on your head, what else do you want? I heard that before. People say that. I've heard that, and I was told that myself growing up, unfortunately. That, well, you're not starving, you're not homeless, what else do you want? You know, but those are basic needs, right? If we have a dog, we have a cat, we have a pet, yeah, they're not starving, they're not homeless, but they still need a cuddle here and there. They still need, to come and sit and just, being pet or whatever else that specific pet needs, right? When it comes to emotional part of things, when it comes to the human touch part of things, right? So that's, again, we don't just get a dog and a cat and then let them caged all day every day, because what's the purpose of having a dog and a cat then, right? Let's feed them and make sure that their business is done, and make sure that they're not outside, or they're not homeless. But still, the purpose of having a pet, right, is companionship, is somewhat we are also the guide of our pet, especially if we have a pet that has not been trained, right? So well, the whole thing is for us to be able to train that cat or that dog. And even if that cat was trained previously or that dog was trained previously, right, once we have that cat or dog in our home, our environment, we make sure that we put certain things in place. Like, some people do not allow their dogs to be on a couch, right, or do not allow their dogs to be on a bed, or their cat. Like, so simple things like that, right? Things like that. And we add extra things to that training that specific pet received before coming to us. And we train that dog or that cat for not to do certain things in our house, right? So it's kind of the same thing, right? We train our children to learn to do what is right and what's wrong. We also train, but it's not only about training. It's also about, when we train them, it's not just to train them on the materialistic or physical things. We also have to train them how to be emotionally adequate as a human being, as a future partner, as a future parent, right? We have to teach them that. Most children come as a blank canvas. We give birth to children as blank canvas, pretty much. And they learn from us. They learn all the colors that they wear, and they leave and they go outside in the world later on. Those colors are from us, unfortunately, from us and from their environment. Their environment means the parents, the caregivers, the brothers, the sisters, uncles, whoever else is around them. In school with all the peers, right? So they learn those things from us. And anxious attachment style is something that they unfortunately acquire from us. Is they're not born anxious. They don't have that attachment style. Is not how they're born. That's something that they unfortunately acquire through us, through their parents, through their caregivers. So it's very important for us to understand that. And when it starts showing early enough, they don't need to be adults for us to actually see being clingy is something that they show. It starts at early age, early enough that we can actually address it, because it's not a permanent thing. It's something that can be addressed. It's something someone who has an anxious attachment style can actually train themselves eventually to get out of that anxious attachment style and being secure by by practicing many different things, right? Many different techniques, many different mechanisms, because clinginess and neediness is a type of coping mechanism for anxious attachment style. But once we understand that we are anxious, we have that anxious attachment style. We are anxious when people leave us. We're anxious when we are not around the people who we consider to provide that emotional support for us not to be anxious, right? Once we understand that, it's easy enough to understand, to be able to investigate actually where is it coming from to begin with. And once we understand where it's coming from, which most of the time is childhood, right? By the clinginess, the neediness can also develop later on in adulthood. Even if growing up we were not anxious, we did not have anxious attachment style. It can develop by having failing relationships, unfortunately. Failing relationships we have the failed relationship that resulted in, unfortunately, with betrayal, right? With betrayal, somebody leaving us for somebody else, or vice versa, right? And the person who unfortunately was the one who was the victim, I would say, I would not say even the victim, because I don't like that term really. So I would say that the person actually who's the one who was subjected to the betrayal, right? That person, unfortunately, is more likely to go to future relationships with the fear of being abandoned. And by having those fears of being abandoned again, they can tend, unfortunately, to unconsciously control, go into a controlling mode, wanting to control things. And by controlling things, that can turn into clinginess, that can turn into neediness, that can turn into, I'm going to call every minute of the day to try to see what they're doing, who they're talking to, where are they, when they're coming back, right? That's a type of neediness, unfortunately. And or being anxious, if that person just texts and say, hey, I'll be there in an hour, and 2 hours later they're not there, that's anxiety. And I have someone, unfortunately, that I've known that person, and they told me a little bit about their story, how their father left and went to the store and say that, hey, I'll be right back. It was that person, the whole family, they were just in the living room, I guess, watching TV. The father left. So, I'll be right back. I'm going to go get a gallon of milk at the store. And the father left and never came back. And 20 years later or so, they found out that the father actually had married somebody, and they had an entire family somewhere else. Now, they thought that something happened to him, or, that something happened to him, something unfortunate happened to him. But they found out, they looked for him, they were trying to figure out what happened, but no results. Come to find out, the father was in an entire different state, had name change and everything. And so, unfortunately, right, that's unfortunately something like that can trigger that abandonment, that anxiety, even if at early age that person did not have anxiety, like anxious attachment style. An incident similar to that specific incident can be something that can trigger that abandonment, that fear of abandonment. That and if that person gets into relationships or something similar to that, can trigger the fear of having similar scenarios in a relationship. And if the partner, a partner of that person, or someone who lived a situation similar, can have feelings that can be triggered, or trauma can be triggered, right? They can have triggers, just something related to that. As simple as saying, hey, I'm going to the store to get milk. Because the next thing you know, the first thing that they might think is, oh, they might just go to the store and never come back. Or I'm going to the car wash, or I'm going to just a simple thing as I'm going out for 2-3 hours to do an errand and come back. It can be triggering. And that's why I'm saying that it's not necessarily something that we acquire as children. It can happen also in adulthood, depending on what kind of trauma we had. And an abandonment situation, betrayal, in a relationship can definitely trigger not only, the need to control situations later on in life, but it can also trigger low self-worth, low self-esteem, low self-love, and all that stuff, right? So it's the dependency, the excessive emotional dependency, unfortunately, is something that can be detrimental to relationships, because the person who is showing that specific trait, it's not actually even a trait. I would say that it's just a behavior, right? It's a behavior that can be controlled. It's a behavior that can be corrected over time. If worked upon, it can be corrected. So I would not even say that it's a trait. It's more like a behavior that can actually, eventually, if we work on it and we're aware of it, we work on it, we'll be able to correct it. And eventually, and the correction is not very much as simple, but it's not also something that's not feasible. It's very feasible. It's something, by simply being aware of it, it's already the start. It's already a win-win by already just being aware of it. And even when we're not aware of it, most likely partners we are with, people we are around, somebody should tell us. Now, people might not tell us all the time, might not tell us at all, but it's good to be around people who can be truthful to us, can be truthful and just tell us how things are without sugarcoating things, or without also having a blind eye, right? Me personally, I would like somebody to tell me if I'm doing something that is out of control. please let me know, because that's the only way we can grow. If no one tells us what we're doing wrong, we can never grow. We will always stay small. We will always stay, unfortunately, we will always stay our own worst enemy. So therefore, it's a good idea for people to around us to say something. Now, there are many different ways things can be said. We can say something that is truthful without being insulting. And I think that's the route to take in situations like this, right? To tell someone, hey, do you think that it's a little bit too much? Without actually even using the word clinginess or without using the word neediness, right? Because those words can come out as insulting often. So if we can just soften it without sugarcoating it, mostly it's not even softening it, it's more like the choice of words. If we can choose certain words properly, we'll be able to be truthful, direct, without having to sugarcoat nothing, and still express what we have to say to the person that we find dearly to us, and still making sure that they actually grow from that specific thing, or in this case, clinginess, or I would say neediness also, which is the same thing, right? So I would say that clinginess, neediness is not only something that we find in romantic relationships. It's something that we can find in many different aspects of our lives, including friendships, including work relationships, right? A simple example I would say is for friendship in general, we over time we grow, we have friends, some friends come and go over time, unfortunately, or we move, we lose touch with some friends, we gain new friends, right? But with time, we come across all different kind of people from all walks of life, right? And some, unfortunately, I would say that we can find, or we can come across someone who is not necessarily, I would not say self-sufficient, but I would say more like anxious attachment style is a type of codependency. But if we have a friend who's always codependent and always calling us, hey, do you want to go to the store? Hey, do you want to go do this? Hey, do you want to go do that? That person is not capable of going and doing nothing by themselves. They have to always have someone with them, right? They have to always be with someone. Now, I would not say that we're perfect. No one is perfect. There's no such a thing. We all have our things, right? I don't like going to the movies by myself, right? But I would not say every minute of the day I have to call someone to go do something with someone, right? Everything I do, I have to do with someone. I would not say that. I would say that certain things I would like to do them by myself, right? I would like to do them by myself. I don't like having nobody with me. I just like to do it by myself. And sometimes, unfortunately, not everyone is like that. And we know many who are like that. And once in a while, we find one or two people in our lives that are very codependent on us, codependent on us in the sense that they always want us to help them do something. And it's not just the physical sense, it's also emotional. And that is not only in friendships, it's also family members, right? Family members, decision making. Hey, I cannot really decide this. Can you help me? Right. And that same person will find that same person will ask all the time, every time. It's not just, and it's small decisions, big decisions, and everything in between. Right. So that's unfortunately what neediness does. It makes us also doubt ourselves. It brings a large sense of self doubt in us, and we cannot really decide much for ourselves. And when we cannot decide much for ourselves, unfortunately, we allow other people to make decisions for us. Now, I always used to tell my students, if you don't make a decision, I'll make it for you. And if I make it for you, you might not like what I decide for you. So you got to learn to make your own decisions, right? And that same thing applies. If we have self-doubt so much all the time, every time, and we don't make our own decisions because we're so much emotionally depending on other people's validation, approval, right? And everything in between, we're more likely to actually put our lives in their hands, because certain decisions are life-changing decisions. And if we cannot make the small decisions for ourselves, we would not be able to properly make the life-changing decisions also. So they kind of felt will fall within the same range of self-doubt, unfortunately. And for that reason, I think it's very important for us to see certain things, certain behaviors, and when it comes to our trauma, right? Being able to investigate, being able to see our trauma, being able to see how can we actually approach this trauma? How can we actually resolve, right? Some trauma, unfortunately, will never be resolved, will never be able to be resolved all the way. But we can manage. By managing, I mean that we can at least find what the triggers are. What's the cause? How do we behave once those things are triggered, that trauma is triggered? And once we understand that, at least we can manage it. Trauma is like any disease, right? Some diseases aren't curable. Some diseases are curable. Certain trauma, unfortunately, we just have to learn to manage it. Like PTSD, unfortunately, PTSD is something that it never goes away. We just have to learn to cope with our coping mechanism. We have to learn to manage it, right? So it's the same thing with most trauma, or a large amount of trauma can be healed, I would say, with time, with the proper effort, the proper techniques, the proper resources. We can heal certain things, but certain things, unfortunately, we have to just learn to manage them, right? But managing is still great. It's still better than not even knowing that actually we living with that trauma, right? Managing is way better. Managing is way better than not doing nothing about it. So that's the biggest thing. And once we understand that certain things cannot be, it would not go away all the way, no matter what. And certain things, even if they can go away, even if we can heal certain trauma, it takes a long time. It takes a very long time for it to actually get to the end of, where it's supposed to be. It takes a long time. That's just that. It's that awareness, understanding that awareness. Now, understanding also that clinginess and or I'll say clinginess, neediness, they're the same exact thing, right? It shows mostly, it's not only that it shows, but it's what actually shows the most. And the common drivers are, I would say, low self-worth also. Low self-worth, and every time we talk about low self-worth, we have low self-love that comes with it. Low self-esteem also comes with it. And it's also, in that sense, if we have low self-worth, low self-love, low self-esteem, we are more likely, unfortunately, to abandon ourselves for other people. Because when we don't love ourselves, we are less likely to advocate for ourselves. And if we have anxious attachment style on top of that, right, we are more likely to be clingy. And clinginess and self-abandonment is detrimental. Those two together is detrimental. We are giving our power completely to the other person by doing that. So by making sure that we heal our anxious attachment style, that will allow also the clinginess to be healed. That will also allow us to understand that by doing that, we are making sure that we are not giving our power away to the other person. And when I say giving our power away, I mean that we are not sitting in the house, right, anxious, waiting for the other person to call for 3, 4, 5 hours when we can be productive doing other things, right? If someone who has secure attachment style will not sit down and for 4 or 5 hours and waiting for the other person to respond to their text message, or making sure that the other person shows up after they say they will show up 1 hour because they just behind 1 hour or 2 hours late for whatever reason, right? They will get up and they will, okay, someone who has a secure attachment style will get up and they will go to, I'll go ahead and do my nails, or I'll go to the store, or I'll go ahead and just clean up around. I'll go down, walk around up and down the street. I'll work out. I'll go to the gym. I'll be productive. That secure attachment style. When I say secure attachment style, it means that most likely that person is not abandoning themselves for the other person, right? They would not sit there and just wait for the other person to be here to have their cup full, to fill up their cup. Their cup will be mostly full already, right? When I say full, I mean that full with self-love, self-worth, self-esteem, right? They would not sit there and just wait for the other person to be there and do all those things for them, because they already found ways to actually fulfill those things for themselves. And because they already fulfill those things for themselves, they will not put that burden on the other partner, to be there, to emotionally be there, to be their everything emotionally, because that's a burden. And anything that's a burden on one of the two partners is more likely to be negative and negatively impact the relationship, unfortunately. So we have to be mindful of that and make sure that we actually find ways to heal our own trauma, our own wounds. So when we get into relationships, or we're in a relationship, we bring our best self in that marriage or that relationship, right? Our best self. So we're not actually the ones bringing the trauma to our relationship that will, unfortunately, be what will eventually break the relationship also, right? And okay, and then just when it comes to, I would say, when it comes to working to make sure that we are not as clingy, right? Because it's not something that will just go away right away. It's something that is progressive. We can actually work on it slowly but surely. Eventually, we'll be less and less clingy, and eventually we'll end up having a secure attachment style, which is very much feasible. Very much feasible. By doing many things, it's very much feasible to manage and to actually overcome it. But by doing that, before even we get there, we have to make sure we investigate. We have to know our attachment style. And I did do a video on attachment styles. If you are not sure what your attachment style is and what it is, you can go and watch that. And I also I put a link on there where you can also go and test to see what your attachment style is. If you don't know what it is and the video is not helping, you can go on that link. There's a quiz attached to that on that website, so you can take the quiz and see what your attachment style is, right? So the biggest thing really to do to be able to address the clinginess is to be able to have the strength to self-soothe. We have to be able to soothe ourselves, soothing ourselves in the sense that if that partner is not here and their partner did not make it for whatever reason, we should be able to tell ourselves, hey, it's okay. It's okay. They'll be back. They'll be back eventually, right? In the meanwhile, right, let me go ahead and be productive. Let me go ahead and do all the things. Let me occupy my mind doing all the things. So we do not fall into that anxiety of thinking about scenarios. Or maybe they got hit by a car, or maybe they did this, or maybe they left me already, maybe this, maybe that. So we don't fall into that scenario, that negative talk, because when we start doing those creating those negative scenarios in our head, that's the type of negative talk also, right? It's not, I would not say it's not it's indirect, but it is still negative talk, because we are creating negative scenarios that increases our anxiety. So therefore we don't need that. We do not need that. So the best thing to do is to be able to find ways to fulfill ourselves, because by fulfilling ourselves, we increase our self-love, our self-worth, and then our self-esteem. And once those three go up, most likely our anxiety when it comes to that specific partner, we would not abandon ourselves, that's for sure. And our anxiety when it attached to that partner will be less and less and less, right? So we have to be able, first of all, to address what's going on with us, to be able to manage our own anxiety by bettering ourselves when it comes to those three things I have mentioned. And then making sure also we communicate our needs, making sure that we tell the partner our needs. And the reason, if the partner might not even know that when they're out and about, we hear anxious for 5-6 hours and we having panic attacks probably, right? Because after so long, being anxious, right, we can end up in a panic attack, full blown panic attack. So that partner might not even know. So being able to bring that up to the partner, right, is a good thing for the partner to know about it. And once the partner knows about it too, that allows the partner to also know why we behave the way we behave when it comes to certain things. Now, that does not excuse our behavior. That just makes them know that this is the reason, right? And that we are working on it. Hey, I'm working on this. I'm really working on this to better myself. But this is what's going on. So the partner knows what's going on. Because at the end of the day, it's not fair to the partner for us to call them 20 times a day, for us to text them 20 times a day, right? And them not knowing what's going on too. So, but if the partner understands that, hey, when I was a child, this and this and this and this happened, so that's the reason why I'm anxious. For example, what I was talking about, that person I've known, their father left and never came back, right? Hey, explaining something like that to a partner is a way for them to also understand and, have some, just sympathize a little bit about what's going on. Sympathizing and be like, okay, I understand what's going on. I understand what's going on. Okay, but again, that does not excuse the way we behave. We still have to be able to work on it, right? We have to work on what's going on, and it does not excuse. We knowing that awareness is not equal to, I would say awareness is not equal to allowance, right? Just because we know about it and we let them know about it, that does not mean it's okay for us. It does not allow us to just keep doing what we're doing, right? It's not the same. So we have to be able to not only make them aware of what's going on. We're aware, they're aware. Now, hey, I'm working on it. I'm working on it, and eventually I'm going to start showing that what I'm doing is working, right? By showing how my behavior have changed, right? So the partner can see it, so we can see it, the partner can see it, and everybody's content with the result, right? So that's the whole point. So just being able to really communicate clearly and expressing how we feel, not only how we feel, but what actually triggers our trauma, what our behavior looks like when our trauma is triggered, right? When all that is triggered, how do we behave? And so the partner knows that it's not just a random thing, right? There is something behind it. And then nurturing ourselves independently. When I say nurturing ourselves independently, again, is being able to connect with other people, allowing ourselves to not just cling to one person, to not ask all our emotional needs from one person, because one person is just one person again, right? And especially if they're the one always giving, and we're not giving nothing back, right? That's again codependency, and we do not want that. Our codependency is very, very deadly to a relationship, especially romantic ones. So being able to have our own friends, our own life separate from the relationship, because again, certain things we can only get so much from a relationship. We cannot be all for one person. We cannot. Now we can try, right? But there are certain things again that we have to be able to give them a break. When I say not to be, we can be all to one person, but not be all the time, every time. That's what I mean by that, because that can be very exhausting. It can be exhausting. I don't want to be there talking to a partner all the time, every time about the same thing over and over. Especially if you come from work, right? You have this workmate that gets on your nerves or something, and you always get into something about this workmate. That's just an example. And then you come to your partner, and every day you telling this partner about the same thing over and over and over and over and over. Eventually, I think that partner might tell you, or might just silence their ears not to hear it, or somehow, some way. It can be exhausting. Let me just say it that way. But maybe one day you can say that to your partner today, and then tomorrow you can call your friend Betty or whatever friend you have, right, and talk to them about it. And then the day after that, you can call your sister and talk to them about it. The day after that, you can call your mother and talk to her about it. So basically, you have a community of people that you can get your emotional needs from. And even that, the best thing to do is have your own emotional needs fulfilled. Now, there is nothing wrong with you calling somebody and venting about what happened at work, right? But if you're doing it all the time, every time, then you might want to listen to yourself and be like, okay, is there something I should do maybe to stop what they're doing? Or am I just letting them walk on me all over? That's another thing too, right? So that's a whole different topic. But all I'm saying is, again, is to be able to nurture ourselves independently, have our own little life separate. So it's when we get into a relationship, it should always be, this is you, this is me, and this is us, right? So there's you, me, and then us. So it should be the us should be, yeah, we do a lot of things together, but then there are certain things I like to do by myself. I like to go do my nails by myself. I like to go do certain things by myself. I like to go do my hair by myself. Certain things, to be able to just do it by yourself, to have that alone time, to be able to just listen to yourself quietly without having somebody else interfering with your thought process, right? Which there's nothing wrong with doing a lot of things with a partner. But again, being able to do certain things on your own. When I say not even a partner, like friends, family, just some certain things, just do it on your own. Doing it on our own is a way for us to actually show ourselves that also we self-sufficient. We don't have to do everything with somebody, right? And that's the nurturing the independence. We nurture our independence to be able to emotionally do certain things on our own, right? Like have a day off and be like, oh, today I'm just going to go downtown, whatever city you live in. Most cities have free museums. Most cities have free art shows. Most cities have free something, And if you Google it, if you're in a big city, right, you Google it, you'll find something, right? And even if it's just a walk at a park, today I'm just going to go at the park. Today I'm going to treat myself with a lunch by myself, right? Something, and it's something as simple as that. Like, it's not too much, but there are so many things that we can do on our own. Free things too, right? And then the last thing is for sure to seek professional help. The professional help is very important. Being able to seek professional help is very important. Again, especially when we have anxiety, prolonged anxiety, panic attacks, especially not only because of the neediness, but it might be possible that it's not even related to the neediness or the clinginess. It's possible that it's something completely different that's triggering it. So when we don't seek professional help, right, we would not be able to actually pinpoint the cause of that anxiety and that panic attack. And it's possible also for us to be put on medication for it, right? Especially if it's something else completely unrelated to the clinginess that's triggering it. So that's why it's very important for us to see a professional. And the professional help, the professional support, right? They will not only support us on that specific thing, they will be able to also provide us all the resources with different avenues, right? Different ways to cope with the clinginess, the anxiety, the panic attacks, right? They'll be able to also pinpoint and help us investigate the cause of it. So that's the biggest thing. Make sure that we definitely seeking professional help, especially if it's very much anxiety and if it's anxiety and if it's panic attack linked to it, right? Those two are present. And also they will be able to help us also find our attachment style and help us also break the pattern, because there are so many different techniques and different coping mechanisms, right? Different healthy coping mechanisms, I would say, because not all coping mechanism is healthy, because clinginess is a type of coping mechanism, right? It's a type of coping mechanism, but it's not something that is healthy. It's unhealthy. And they will be able to actually help us have healthy coping mechanisms to replace those unhealthy coping mechanisms, coping patterns that comes as clinginess, right? So that's another thing. So making sure that we get the healthcare providers, well, I would say the professional support, right? And therapy and all that stuff. So I will say that I will go ahead and stop here, but I will say this in every video. Please, 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 please take care of yourself, okay? Take care of yourself, take care of your needs. You are only good to other people as much as you're good to yourself, right? Because again, you're good to nobody if you're not good to yourself. That's exactly what I meant by that. Because if you are good to yourself, you radiate good, you radiate happiness. And when you radiate it, it's a ripple effect. It ripples to other people. So therefore, making sure that you are doing the best you can to heal the best you can. And by healing, you become the best of yourself by doing that. And when you the best of yourself, you're most likely to be the best of yourself to other people. You bring the best of yourself to other people, right? So that's the reason I always say making sure that we take care of ourselves, making sure we put ourselves first, because we only good to other people as much as we good to ourselves. If we're not good to ourselves, we definitely not good to other people, especially when we have children, right? When we have small children. And doing our daily routine, doing your daily routine, whatever works for you, right? Doing your yoga, your meditation, making sure that you're going to walk at the park, taking naps if needed, right? Whatever you need. In Italy, they do it. they do it regularly, right? And that's probably why they're some of the happiest people out there. So if you need a nap, tell everybody, do not disturb me. Put a do not disturb sign on the door and take your nap if you can, right? Whatever it is that you need to do, you need to take care of it, right? Take care of it. Even if it's 30 minutes per day, an hour per day, put aside for yourself, right? Doing the meditation, yoga, making sure you sleep hygiene, making sure you sleep 7 to 8 hours per day. It will be the best for sure if you sleep the same hour, you wake up the same hour, right? And then making sure you drink your water, eating a healthy, well-balanced meal, making sure that we do all those things, right? Self-care for sure. All those things are self-care. Self-care 100%. Just making sure that we do what we can for ourselves first. Now, I'm not saying forget about everybody, but I'm saying for sure putting time for ourselves, because I understand that as parents, as women, as family, we take care of families all day, every day. We take care of all the other people every day, all day, every day. We're more likely to give all our hours of the day to other people and forget ourselves, right? And then we end up depleted. So therefore, it's better for us to take care of ourselves first. Take care of ourselves, making sure that we, for sure, ask ourselves every day, how am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? And it's very important. How am I doing? Every day, by the end of the day, asking ourselves, how am I doing? Because I am sure that there are many people, many mothers, many women out there, or men too, that no one asks them, how are you doing today? When I say, how are you doing today? I mean, it's not just the words, it's literally the meaning behind it. It's the sincerity, the authenticity of actually that phrase, how are you today? that question. How many people ask that sincerely, wanting to know really how are you doing? And if you're willing to tell them, hey, I'm not doing okay, are they willing to stand there and will actually listen to you, sincerely listen to you? That's the thing that I'm talking about. But again, not a lot out there that will do that. But again, that's where the therapists come into play. Or you become your own therapy on a daily basis, therapist on a daily basis. Ask yourself, how am I doing today? And that the answer to that question should actually trigger you to know how much should you do more for yourself, right? Because if I say I'm not doing good today, and then the next question is what's wrong? And then, oh, I didn't sleep last night well. Now I know tonight I need to go to sleep early, right? Or I'm very stressed. Now I know if that's the answer to my question, now I know, or tomorrow I need to kind of take it easy, right? So that's the biggest thing. On a daily basis, again, in order that question is very important. How am I doing today? Okay. Especially at the end of the day. In the morning too, but mostly at the end of the day. Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and leave it here. Right. So until next time, please, please, please take care of yourself. Bye-bye.